we all have enjoyed the marine aquarium, right? Whether it could be in the hospitals or it could be in the airport or while visiting the public aquariums. So we admired the swimming nature of angelfishes or sea anemones that have been swiggling under the tentacles of sea anemones. And we also enjoyed the crawling behavior of shrimps and crabs. But we forget one fact, that all these animals that have been collected from the coral reef environment, and it came through thousands of miles away to reach our home aquarium. So in my talk, that will be focusing on basic introduction about the marine ornamentals, and we'll be looking into the historical perspective and the supply chain. And we also touch upon the exports, diversity and the values. And I'll give 3 examples like the Nemo effect and others. And it's also we'll look into a glimpse of the Indian marine aquarium trade, which I'll be focusing more, and then future recommendations. So coming to the introduction, whenever we say we heard a term marine ornamental or marine aquarium trade, they always these words are together, that it's a vibrant industry in terms of aesthetic value, in terms of economy, and it's worldwide, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you look at the economy, it plays a significant role in the economy of both the developing as well as the developed countries. It brings more income, as well as it also acts as a source of livelihood for the from fishers to the aquarists. And these fishes are mostly collected from the coral reef regions of the Indo-Pacific, the Red Sea and the Caribbean Sea. More than 125 countries have been involved globally in this aquarium trade, and almost 3.5 million people are involved. As I said, it's mostly collected from the wild, and unfortunately, almost 85% of the species will die immediately after collection. And this is mainly because of the poor handling practices or the poor collection practices of the marine ornamentals. We will see that in a bit. And almost 10% of the fishes will die during the transportation. This is again due to the physical stress or due to the mishandling. And only 5% of the fishes or invertebrates that reach the hobbies. And whatever the trade value or the volume, which we'll be looking in the later slides, are mainly because of this 5%. And if you see, if we able to retain or recover the remaining 95% of the fishes, and you can see that how the trade volume will be. So as I said, there is a devastating fishing practices that are still in practice, which is mainly damaging the marine ornamental trade. And the aquarium trade is mostly unorganized, and we don't have proper protocols to collect the fishes, proper protocols to pack the fishes, and proper protocols for transportation. And it's a multifaceted, because we don't know who is collecting the fishes and who are all the in charges, whether they are licensed collectors or non-licensed collectors like that. And it's a fragmented supply chain system. And most of the fishes have been mainly imported to US, followed by Europe, Japan, and other countries. And the main exporting nations are the Asian countries, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and all. If we look at the historical perspective, the fish keeping has started in the 8th century, right? And it started with the Romans when they first started maintaining sea anemones on the outdoor tanks. And moving to the 13th and 15th century, the Aztec empires have started maintaining fishes in the pond aquariums. And then in 1846, Anna Thine from London, who started first keeping the first marine aquarium with corals and sea anemones. And due to the development from 1930s to 1950s, the aquarium trade industry have started the export, and then in 1950, of course, our neighboring country Sri Lanka has started the ornamental export. And in 1950s, again, the people have started maintaining home aquariums. Especially, it started with the clowns and damsels. And in 1952, the first scuba diving has got patented, and which has made way for the collection of more and more ornamental fishes. And in 1980, scientists and the other researchers have started understanding the biology of aquarium fishes and invertebrates. So this has made so comfortable that they standardize the protocol of maintaining and breeding the ornamental fishes and invertebrates. And they also created, innovated the artificial seawater. So even in places like Delhi or Hyderabad, where you don't have any reach to the coastal areas, we can easily maintain the marine aquariums with the help of this artificial seawater. And the rapid growth of ornamental trade has started from 1990, where we can see almost 20 to 30% of the trade increase. And if you look at the trade channel, in the wild cultured specimens, it starts from the collectors. Of course, the fishermen are the basic collectors, which are at the base of the pyramid. And then it will move on to the wholesale exporters or the wholesalers, or there will be some mediators which will be involved in the trans-shipping, and it could easily reach to the retailers. And then coming to the collection of ornamentals, I said that they are still maintaining the destructive fishing practices, right? So one is the cyanide. You can see on the right there is some collectors who is applying the sodium cyanide into the marine environment, and in the above picture you can see the blasting. So some fish collectors use the dynamites. So these two practices which stunts the fishes or other invertebrates inside the marine environment for a few minutes, so that the ornamental fish collectors can easily snorkel or do skin diving in order to collect those fishes. And there is a application of gill nets which entirely cover the corals or reef habitats, and then they collect the ornamental fishes. And the last method, which is more worst, is totally damaging the habitat of ornamental fishes. Not only the ornamental fishes, but also the associated habitats like corals and sea animals. And the unfortunate thing is almost 99% of the fishes will die. 99% of the fishes will die due to bottom trawls, and it also leads to the damage of the associated habitats. And I would also like to highlight the eco-friendly collection methods, which has been widely practiced in the Gulf of Mannar and Park Bay areas by our native fishermen in Tamil Nadu, where they are using these kind of bamboo cages. Right on the right, you can see a spotted puffer which got stuck in the bamboo cage. So it's not like a targeted or non-targeted, and whatever the fishes that gets into the trap will only come to the surface for sales. And on the below pictures, you can see the number of bamboo cages that have been stacked ready for the deployment in the coral reef environments. And moving on to the fishes, at a global level, we have almost 2,300 species that are available in the trade. So the data is according to Ryan et al. Up to 2017. So these fishes are the inhabitants of coral reefs. As I said, that most of the fishes are collected from the reef areas. And the food and feeding habits of these fishes are also associated with this coral reef environment. And it has a different breeding biology, unique breeding biology, I could say, because some are depositors, and some are mouth brooders, and some are pelagic spawners. And fishes constitute most of the aquarium trade. And I'm not going detail into all of the families, but I would like to touch upon or highlight few families because these families constitute most of the marine aquarium trade. So one is the Homocantidae, where we have the clowns, damsels, and surgeons. So clownfishes are technically called as anemone fish, and it also have a peculiar symbiotic behavior with the sea anemones throughout its lifetime. So these clones and damsels are very hardy and attractive, and it's also reef safe to maintain in the home aquarium. And the next is Homocantidae or the angelfish, which is again quite hardy, and it makes a significant challenge for the aquarium keepers if you especially maintain this in a home aquarium, because these are all not reef safe, and it needs a large aquariums for maintaining it at home. And it undergoes changes in coloration during maturation, and you can see this picture where the juvenile and the pre-adult and the adult have three different transitions in the color. And the next one is Ketodontidae or butterfly fish. It's all beautiful and distinct additions to the marine aquariums. Another one is Apogrannidae or cardinal fish. These are all nocturnal, and usually it used to swim in shoals. And these are all specifically mouth brooders and mostly small in size. On the right, what we have is the Bali Cardinal, and I will tell you a story regarding this, maybe a kind of a case study. And next one is the Gobidae, and these are all like hardy and a very good choice for aquariums. And it has a burrowing behavior, and these are reef safe and sometimes associated with the shrimps. And we have the surgeon fish or Acanthuridae. On the right, we have Dory, or we call it as a pallet surgeon, right? And here we have a yellow tank. So these again swim in shoals, and it helps to mostly feed on the algae. So it helps to maintain the reef of the fish. So next is the Labridae, again attractive and farm fishes, which is very good for the home aquarium. So these are the lionfish. It's again invited in the trade because of its bizarre morphology, and it also have venomous spines on the fin. And we have the triggerfish. They usually consider this as a monsters in the reef because they are more territorial and aggressive. I will just so compared to all the families which we have seen before, we also have several other fishes that are available in the trade. If you look at the export, import, and species value, I'll be highlighting the case study from US because most of the trade data are widely available only for US compared to any other countries, because US is the only nation where there is no export is possible, because you are not allowed to collect any reef fishes from the US water. You can see only the green marks in the US coastal lines. These are all the import points, and we have the blue points where it's outside the US. These are all the export nations where they are collecting fishes from their own nation and then sending to the US for imports. So based on the data, almost 51 countries have exported marine fishes to US, and the top two nations here are the Philippines and the Indonesia. Sorry. If you look at the family-wise data, the Homocantidae, which is nothing but the clowns and damsels, have almost 47% of share in the import data in the US. So this is like a 10-year data from 2000 to 2011. And among the species, you have Amphiphrion, which is specifically clown, has 6%, and the remaining damsel is almost 94% among the Homocantidae. If you look at the species-wise composition, like first 20 species alone constitute 52% of the entire trade. So if you look at the total volume in the first 20 species, there is a great consistency. And there is a chromis viridis, which is nothing but the green damsel. So that almost share more than 10% of the trade. And then 13 to 16%, 16 countries are exporting clownfish. And I would like to highlight 3 examples related to the ornamental fishes. One is the clownfish, what we call it as a nemo effect. So almost 30 species are there in clownfish, and these are all native to the warmer waters of Indian and Pacific Oceans, and the clownfishes are not available in the Atlantic waters. These mostly live in the sheltered shallow water areas and mainly associated with the sea anemones. And it constitutes almost, as I said, 43% of the trade. And fortunately, almost 25% of the global trade organisms were bred in captivity. So there are breeding protocols, standardized breeding protocols that are available both in India as well as in abroad for maintaining the clownfishes in captivity. So the top exporting countries, as I said, the Indonesia and Philippines. And if you look at the number of species under Amphiprion and Premnus, the top 2 species are the Nemo counterparts. One is the Amphiprion ocellaris, and another one is the closely related Amphiprion pecula. If you look at the number of individuals, so Amphiprion ocellaris, nothing but the Nemo, it's almost 260,000 individuals have been exported. So this is what we call it as a Nemo effect, because the film has got released in 2003 and it has connected the marine aquarium trade with the wide varieties of audiences, right? And then almost the sales have increased 3 times after the movie release. So most of the public or the hobbyists have started maintaining or purchasing nemo fishes for their marine home aquarium. So if you look at the exact data, there is almost 40% of the sale increase after the movie release. So what happened to Dory? So the Finding Dory has got released in 2016, right after 13 years from Finding Nemo. So since the Dory has got featured even in the Nemo movie, the sales has not much increased as Nemo, because the recent study by Verissimo et al. In 2020, they have said that compared to Nemo, that the sales of Dory has not really increased much. And fortunately, Dory has been bred in captivity for the first time in the same year when the movie got released. So in November 2016, there is the University of Florida Tropical Aquaculture Lab has successfully bred this pallet surgeon or Dory in the captivity. And another interesting story, which is a Bali Cardinal fish, and this fish is endemic to the Indonesian waters, right? You know, endemic means it is available only in the specific locality. And it's one of the most common fish imported by USA, right? Almost 89% of the population loss have been observed in Indonesia from 2001 to 2004. So because almost 140,000 fishes have been imported by US annually, and this has resulted in the loss of almost 90% population in the Indonesian waters. So what the IUCN has done is, after so much of research, they listed the species as endangered in 2007, and thereby the sites have also listed the species in the appendix 2. So I will tell you what is sites in a bit. And then as of 2013, almost 120,000 Bali Cardinals have been imported annually by US, but from a aquaculture facility in Thailand. So here on the right, you can see there is a big net, and you can see that hundreds of Bali Cardinals have been collected by a diver. And moving on to the ornamental invertebrates, there are almost 725 species have been observed in the trade. So this is mainly the trade data based on the imports in the United States. So why this has been preferred along with the fishes is due to their coloration and their delicate nature. So you can see there are corals that have been that are involved in the trade, and we have worms called the sabellid worms or tube worms. We have sea anemones, we have giant clams, and then hermit crabs, coral crabs, and some brachyuran crabs. And we also have urchin and starfishes in the invertebrate trades. And compared to all other invertebrates, there is one specific group called ornamental shrimps have been mostly preferred by the aquarists. Why? Because it is due to its dazzling coloration, because of its delicate nature and unique sizes and shapes, and it also displays unusual reproductive traits because some are gonochoric, which means the both male and female sex have been easily identified, but some are hermaphrodites, and you can't differentiate whether it's a male or female. And it also exhibits symbiotic behavior. You can see the cleaning of fishes with the giant moray eels. And we also have some shrimps that are associated with the sea urchins as well as sea anemones. And it also controls nuisance of organisms in the aquarium. And these fishes are considered as a reef safe. Like fishes, the marine ornamental shrimps are also collected from the Indo-Pacific, Atlantic, Red Sea, and the Caribbean seas. So almost more than 50 species of shrimps are available in the ornamental trade. And there is a lismata, which is a cleaner shrimp, and the Stenopus, which is a coral banded shrimp, are highly exploited and supplied throughout the trade. So the major exporting countries, like all other fishes, Indonesia and Philippines are top, and also followed by Sri Lanka in exporting. But here, most of the Sri Lankan counterparts are coming from the Maldives, because Maldives are not exporting the fishes or shrimps directly, and they send most of the fishes to the Sri Lanka, and from there it gets dispersed. So almost 10 million individuals per year have been documented in the trade. So major families, there are few families that are involved. If you look at the overall trade statistics at the global level, so this includes both fishes and the invertebrates. The total trade value is almost US $10 billion, with increase in the trade increase in value annually. And if you include the tanks, accessories, plants, and other medications, and the trade value rose up to $18 to $20 billion per year. And if you look at the export value in the marine counterpart, it has increased from 167 million in 1999 to almost 347.5 million in 2014. And if you look at the total import value, it's almost $350 million. And Asia alone contributes 57% of the trade, where Singapore tops with 20% of the major. And moving on to the marine aquarium trade in the Indian perspective, so we have done an extensive study between 2014 and 2015 as a part of a Roof Small Grant project, and we observed that most of the marine aquarium trade in India is restricted to the Gulf of Mannar area. But recently we also heard news that few species have been illegally or legally caught from the Lakshadweep Islands, and then it is transported to Cochin, and then from Cochin it got supplied to the other states. So Indian aquarium trade is very small and it's less organized, right? And it mainly depends on the wild caught species, and a few are captive bred, especially the clownfishes and damsels are captive bred. And recently, NBFGR and other institutes have started producing marine ornamental shrimps in the captive conditions. And as I said, compared to the global value, it's less than 1%, right, in the total exports. And almost 87 species of fishes are involved in the trade from India, and 21 species of invertebrates, along with the 22 species of corals. And why? Because it lacks proper collection and handling practices. And if you look at the way the fishermen are collecting fishes, it's horrible and devastating, because as I said, almost 85% of the fishes die immediately after collection, right? So the same condition is applicable even in India, because the collection practices are not proper and they don't have proper infrastructure to maintain the fishes after collecting from the wild. So if you look at the trade channel, which is very simple, the fishermen will collect the fishes and it will go to the wholesalers, and then it can move to the private entrepreneurs or the research institutes for research or captive production, or directly to some intermediate agents and to the retailers, and then it will reach the home aquarium. So if you look at the top 10 fishes in the trade, we have Amphiprioncebae, which is again closely related to the nemo. So the clownfish alone constitute almost 25% of the share in the trade. If you combine both clowns and damsels, the Homocantidae alone constitutes almost 58% of the Indian trade. And the family-wise diversity, if you see, there is a Labridae, which is a wrasse. Almost 16 different species have been observed, followed by Homocantidae and other families. And the region-wise diversity, there are 3 major hubs in the Gulf of Mannar. One is Tuticorin, Kilakarai, and the Mandapam regions. So Tuticorin constitutes majority in the supply, because the ornamental fish collectors or the ornamental wholesalers are more in the Tuticorin region compared to the Kilakarai and Mandapam counterparts. So these are some fishes which we took pictures in the wholesalers while visiting the wholesalers. So here we have blue damsels, angels, and there is Amphiprioncebae, which I showed you before. And here we have the blood shrimps or fire shrimp, which is again one of the costly shrimp. And we have sea anemones, starfishes, and the sabellids worm. So here we have a link, if you see at the ornamental fishes and the invertebrates. If you look at the invertebrates, there is a Stichodactyla hadoni, which is a carpet anemone, which constitutes almost 19% share in the invertebrates. And there is a shrimp, which is a shrimp called Periclymenus brevicarpalis, which constitutes almost 17% of the share. So what the link here is, if the fisherman is going inside to catch the sea anemones, and there is associated fish shrimp, the Periclymenus brevicarpalis, as well as the symbiotic fishes or the clownfishes. So if they went inside to catch the fish, they not only catch the fish, but they also catch the associated shrimp as well as the host sea anemones. So it's like a 3-in-1. They can collect all the 3, and all the 3 will fetch more value in the ornamental side and the ornamental trade. So there are other species like starfishes, and then another group of shrimp which also be a part of a trade. And this is again a worst part, which we took these pictures, without keeping the fish collectors in aware, because these are all taken while as a part of when we were doing survey in the wholesalers markets. So these are like almost 22 varieties of hard corals we have observed, and you can also see that so many zoanthids, right, pseudocorals, and we can also see like some soft corals are also involved in the trade. And we also included this when we were publishing that almost 22 species of hard corals that are harvested illegally from Gulf of Mannar for the marine aquarium trade. And if you look at the export value from India, so as I said, it contributes less than 1%. And if you look at the total value, it's only $10,000, right? And the main point of export is the Bangalore and the Mumbai. It's almost equal share. And in the marine invertebrate side, marine ornamental invertebrates, I would also like to touch upon the curio trade, which is nothing but the marine ornamental shells, so which is mostly dead, right? So it not only includes the shells, but also the any dead hard organisms. So here you can see some porcupine fishes, right? And then you also have seahorse. Even seahorse have a very good trade in the Chinese medicine. So it all included under the Wildlife Protection Act, Schedule 1, but there are still some illegal trading is going on in the coastal areas. So why the curio has been included? Because due to the over-exploitation for ornamentals, and almost 24 species have been included in the Wildlife Protection Act or schedule list in 2000 by Government of India. So this image is taken from Sargent et al. From 2013 reference, where few of the species have been included in Schedule 1, right? You can see corals, you can see seahorse, and then you can see giant clams, and then several other species. And in the Schedule 4, we also have the gorgonians, which is nothing but the sea fans. And yeah, and this is the picture which we took when we were visiting the landing centers at Mandavam and Tuticorin. There will be like tons and tons of shells that have been harvested in a daily basis, right? So whenever you are visiting the landing centers, you can easily see the different varieties of shells, and you can see that there are bags and bags of shells have been harvested and processed for this marine curio trade. And coming to tracking of the trade, there is no clear estimates on the pictures. Of course, there are three major players who are taking care or who are regulating this marine ornamental trade. One is the CITES, which is Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species. So it's established in the year 1960 in agreement between the governments who are specifically doing the import and exports of marine ornamentals. And unfortunately, there are few reports which indicates that the data import and the export data were inaccurate and incomplete and insufficient, because most of the countries that they don't have proper management of the data to give it to the sites. Of course, India is also one among, and there is a global marine aquarium database where the recent estimates of the trade data were compared to fewer, were less compared to the other database. There is no like consistency in the data between these databases. So what the US has done is they had a link with the United States Fisheries Wildlife Service, and they established a separate database for them called Law Enforcement Management Information System. And they started obtaining data because the US ornamental trade is mainly import oriented, so it is very easy for them to track the logistic bills or courier bills in order to track the import data. So according to them, the extensive studies and then are maintained by this Ryan et al. And other of his colleagues, that they are excellently maintaining those data in the US counterpart. So coming to the recommendations, we have like a few recommendations after we completed our study. So one is like prioritizing the existing policies and the opportunities for the scientific research. So one is we need to strengthen the existing policies. One is the Wildlife Protection Act, the Coastal Regulation Zones, Biological Diversity Act, and the Fisheries Regulation Zone. So tomorrow we have an eminent speaker, advocate from Madras High Court, who will be focusing more on these legal framework policies. So main aim is to strengthen or upgrade these acts. And Indian marine aquarium trade can be regulated under CITES or the World Conservation Monitoring Center, which is from the UK. And we can also strengthen the research on species-based taxonomy because there are several researchers that say the fish name will be different and the exact fishes that have been supplied in the trade would be different. So it's better to enlighten or to educate the fishermen to know that what the exact species have been supplied in the trade. And we can also get information like understanding the traditional knowledge from the fishermen, because they are the basic, they are at the base of the pyramid, right? Because they are the first who is getting in touch with the ornamentals. And we can also do population or natural stock assessment, and we can also understand the species biology, so that which will be helpful in managing the fishery stock. And we can also ban the destructive fishing practices, like which I said before. And there is second part is like opportunities for management and conservation. In the Indian counterpart, we can enforce licensing methods for ornamental fish collectors. So if you look at the Gulf of Mannar, there will be almost 150 to 200 fishermen from Mandapam to Tuticorin, which are mainly involved in the ornamental fish collection. So what we can do is we can bring those stakeholders, and then we can frame a licensing policy, right? And give it to them, and we can also encourage the wholesalers or the retailers to buy fishes only from those certified sellers or certified collectors. And we can also establish size-based limitations, whether it could be a brooder or newly recruited juveniles can be avoided. And we can also bring a labeling for ornamental species, especially during the transportation or sales. We can label it as whether it could be a captive bred or eco-friendly collection methods have been adopted for these fishes. And we can also encourage the aquaculture of marine ornamental taxa. As I said, we have standardized protocols for clownfishes, damsels, and ornamental shrimps in Indian side. We can also create self-help groups because it will bring lots of income as well as livelihood development for the women entrepreneurs. And last but not the least, there should be always be a participatory approach for the sustainable utilization of resources as well as proper management. As I said, the base of the pyramid is with the fishermen and collectors, and we have wholesalers and retailers, exporters and hobbyists, and next comes the role of citizens, conservationists, and scientists who can study more on the species biology, ecology, and taxonomy. And there will be a top authority like National Biodiversity Authority or MPDA or MOEFCC and other organizations which can involve in helping the below stakeholders in regularizing the ornamental trade and utilizing it sustainably. Because I always believe that the sustainability or the livelihood development and the conservation should always move in parallel. It's not like in name of conservation we will ban everything, and in term of livelihood development, we allow the fishermen to catch anything and everything. No, that is not possible, and we have to allow and we have to run both the conservation and livelihood parallel. And these are the sources which I have utilized for my study. And there is again, of course, everyone will be aware that there is a new type of pollution that is coming on due to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. And thank you all. And I think I would be ready for taking any questions.